Let's segue into Thomas's latest. If you want to share some of your work here,
the Satanism stuff. I can do some previews. I think.
Yeah, I'll do some previews, and then I think Mike and Jeremiah were hoping to join in on the discussion. So we'll do.
Let's go
open up a little bit after that, but first, let's see all the magic, the dark Disney.
Yes.
I'll give you some little previews here. Let me.
Awesome.
So I got the screen. Here, I'm not going to show you the whole comic, but I'll give you a nice preview that I haven't shown you.
Yeah, don't give it all away. Just give us the pamphlets.
All right.
A little sneak peek.
Yeah. So this is the same artist that does Chaos Twins for Sam Tripoli's comic. Same one that did the Illuminati comic. His name's Swapdrap. He's basically the main pamphlet artist going forward on a lot of these. So yeah, I mean, right off the bat, this is the Satanic Panic comic, and the origin of this was that, I mean, I think all of us kind of grew up during the Satanic Panic of the 80s and 90s, right? And for me, growing up at this time, this meant that there were actual police coming into the elementary schools and warning kids like, hey, don't get into vans because there are Satanists that are driving around and snatching up kids and doing horrible things to them. And we had to come up with secret passwords to like
during Halloween. They were putting razor blades in apples. Remember that?
That was actually that was like a folk tale a little bit.
Is it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the origin of that was that one person did eat a poison apple, but it was a father that fed it to his own kid to try and get the insurance money from poisoning him. And then the media took that story of a father poisoning his kid with an apple or with like a candy bar or something on Halloween. And then that turned into everyone was afraid that a stranger was going to do it to them, but it had only happened within a family, which is why it was like and he timed it out to be on Halloween. So if you look into that guy too, they asked him like, do you feel bad about trying to poison your kid over all this? And he ended up going to jail for the rest of his life. I think his kid might have actually died. And his response was like, yeah, but I made Halloween safer. So like in his mind, he had done some great, justice to society. So anyways,
bastard.
The reason that this comic exists and why I started it is because I was growing increasingly convinced that the Satanic Panic did not start in the 80s, and it didn't start with the Beatles talking about Aleister Crowley and Black Sabbath, and it probably even started before the 1950s or 40s or 30s. And then I kept trying to find, like, where did Satanism actually start? Like, who was the first one that was
witch
like
trials?
Satan and
didn't Satan start Satanism?
I mean, if you're gonna just cut right to the chase, Satan started it, but it kind of came over with the Pilgrims originally. So, anyways, I'll show a couple of the features in here. Like, we've got an example of the Knights Templar because you got to have the Baphomet reference. And you got to have Freemasons involved, of course, if you're going to be talking about Satanism. And then we're talking about how, for example, in 1692, this is the Salem witch trials, right? And a lot of people are like, "Oh, so glad that that's over," in the 1690s. But there was actually a whole bunch of different Satanists that were being brought all the way up into the late 1800s. So in the 19th century, there were still people going to court for wizardry and witchcraft that had to be let out of the legal system. Like this, we're talking 1800s, this is happening. But one of the weirdest things that I discovered is that it was just like poor people mostly that were getting in trouble for all this. And a lot of it was on the East Coast. If you were on the West Coast at the exact same time,
bums are witches.
Well, yeah, dude. Like, if like being rich allows you to be a Satanist in a different way than a poor person Satanist, and this is kind of, I'm not going to give the whole story away, but that's kind of what the conclusion of this comic book shows you. And this example right here, I think, is one of the most prominent ones. This is Joseph Stout of Fentress County, Tennessee, had to be acquitted in court of wizardry in 1830. You can look this up. This kind of blew my mind that as far into the modern times as 1830, there were still people being tried for wizardry. And then just 20 years later, though, we had Paschal Beverly Randolph, who's one of the main guys that introduced Rosicrucianism to California. I mean, under the exact same lens, he could have been considered the same type of occult Satanist wizard, by this like big umbrella. However, he never really came under that sort of suspicion, at least not to the same extent as having to go to court and defend your life over wizardry. And that we'll start to see kind of this pattern where if you are introducing occultism into groups of wealthy people, then you get a special pass. But if you're introducing occultism to poor people through like occult bookstores or music or some other way of introducing it to the masses, that's the punishment. And that's the version of it that gets played up in the media. And that's like, oh, those people are sacrificing animals and they're doing bloodletting rituals and look at these horrible Satanists. But really, there's like the elite class that never get accused, that have always flown under the radar. And here I'm gonna here. I don't know if I want to share too many more. I'm gonna skip around.
May I say one thing? I am ashamed that in the Catholic religion during one time, I do think there's evil and good, and at this time there was more evil, but they would say that if you didn't tithe a certain amount, you couldn't get into heaven. And it's literally the opposite of what Jesus preached in the Bible. Jesus, give me your poor, you're hungry. You know what I mean? Jesus was the opposite of what they were doing. And they were saying that you couldn't get a pass into heaven unless you paid for it.
You got to buy your way in, right?
Yeah, basically.
I don't know if I want to give some of these away. Let me see.
No worries. Don't give it all away.
Here's the last one that I'll point out. This was a fun little discovery that I made during my Satanism research. That most people are familiar with, like Anton LaVey Satanism. This is the Hollywood Church of Satan, the one that had Samuel Lee Davis Jr. and maybe some connections to like Manson family and stuff. But this is like the West Coast, like put on a big show version of Satanism. The guy with the pointy beard and the bald head. Well, he started out as basically like a carny, and then he worked in a cabaret, like playing piano and just kind of as an entertainer. And he watched this very specific episode of the Wild Wild West, episode number 24. The name of it was called Night of the Druid's Blood. And it was starring Don Rickles as a Satanist that called himself Asmodeus. And he had the exact same facial hair, the same outfit, everything. Well, Anton LaVey sees this on TV and he's like, I love that. He goes to work at the cabaret the next night and he declares that the very first meeting of the Church of Satan, and he shaves his head and he basically dresses up as Don Rickles and then just does his normal routine. But that is the origin story of the grand, like the American Satanism that everyone usually points the finger at. And again, this is just a fabrication of Hollywood. Someone saw something on TV and was like, oh, that's cool and quirky. I'm going to do that as a shtick. And that turns into what a lot of people associate with an actual religion. But this is just like
now they're literally putting up statues. Right? Like the same group is now putting up statues at like Senate buildings and stuff, correct?
Well, that is a separate, I always get these mixed up. I think that's the Temple of Satan, not the Church of Satan. And the way that I understand the difference is that LaVey Satanism is more like Hollywood, like Crowleyan. I'm gonna be very general, but like do what you want to do, kind of like live for yourself Satanism. Whereas Temple of Satan, or the Satanic Temple rather, the Satanic Temple is a political arm. They're the ones that specifically go after public displays of like a religious statue on public ground. They're like, if we're following the law here, then I can put about a statue of Baphomet right next to your statue of Jesus. Or if you're going to say that Bibles are allowed in school, then we also have to have satanic Bibles allowed in school. That's the Satanic Temple. They're like the political arm. And I understand, and I'm probably out of turn here, but I understand that a lot of them actually identify as atheists, and it's mostly a reactionary suppression of religion in like the political sphere. They want to eliminate it, and their technique of trying to eliminate religion is by like countering it. Like, oh, if you're going to be hot, then we got to be cold. Like they're always trying to be this annoying like thorn in the side. Whereas LaVey Satanism is more about like the actual ritual, and it might not even be like true Luciferian Satanism.
So it's like the best trick the devil played was convincing people he didn't exist. So it's like you're just getting all of the the non-believers of any religion,
right? It's like you join the Satanic Temple because you're an atheist and you just want to like meme against hardcore Christians to like for the lulz, but then you don't realize that you yourself have been tricked into like the greatest trick. I mean, it would be meta if that were the true equation.
Right?
May I get your honest opinion, Paranoid, on if this is true or not?
Always.
Because you've done this, the research on this. Is it true that Anton LaVey on his deathbed basically said he made a mistake?
I've heard for and against this. It depends on the source. So I mean, I don't think so.
Like, no, don't take my soul.
At the same time, Pascal's wager is logically it's a sound thing, right? Because on your way out, if certain denominations like you're Catholic, if you have your like last rites and you truly, like make your amends, then you just get a one-way ticket to heaven. So it's almost like, what would be the downside of hedging your bets? The only downside is that you get up there and St. Peter's like, I know you're just hedging your bets, bud. Like, no, it doesn't work like that here.
At least you got an escalator ride up, right?
Yeah, it seems odd. Why would it even become an issue if it may have been true? You know what I mean? Like, it seems just like something to pull out of your butt to say.
Well,
on his deathbed.
It's the same way that people will be like, oh, well, Ayn Rand, she collected welfare checks. So, this is your big Atlas Shrugged hero. It's a way of trying to use a rhetorical device to invalidate an ideology. So by saying that Anton LaVey recanted and worshipped Christ on his way out and said he was sorry and he was all wrong, it's a way to neuter everything that he had done in life, the same way that, again, people will like, oh, Ayn Rand collected a welfare check, but there's a deeper version of that doesn't necessarily invalidate it.
Okay. I like your opinion. I just always wonder that if it's true. Like, imagine the biggest Satanist in the world on his deathbed said, I made a mistake. It's kind of
hedging his bets. That's what, he sold his soul to the devil already, Of course, you're going to try to get out of that deal.
Well, I mean, it's a good question. Is if you founded the Church of Satan, can you be forgiven?
Right. Like, is it true? And then why did it pop up? Which you explain very elegantly, but it's kind of one of those urban myths that maybe could be based off of some little truth.
As far as I'm aware, his daughter, was it? Someone in his immediate family said that was not true and that was specifically leaked in order to like discredit. I don't really have a dog in the fight. I honestly think deep down he was just a carny. He was a guy that played piano in a cabaret and came up with a shtick that he saw on TV and made it work for him and used it to get close to celebrities, and then probably ended up becoming part of like CIA honeypot schemes or something. So I don't
advantage at the time. Yeah, he took advantage.
He was an opportunist in the greatest version of that word.
Yeah, right? Yeah, he had the perfect time to do it.
Now, I would say Anton LaVey is probably no more evil than P.T. Barnum, but maybe I'm just saying that P.T. Barnum was also a Satanist.
By that means, he probably did try to recuse it just to hedge his bets. It seems like intelligent enough guy. What are your
What
thoughts on
what
blood over intent? Have you heard of this blood over intent
No.
craze and Satan thing? Okay, so it's kind of creepy. I learned about it through Tartarian Truth like a year
Blood
ago.
over intent.
Yeah, and I guess it's some sort of like satanic ritual where they like try to claim that, oh, it's not satanic, but you're literally with your blood writing some like freaking oath to Lucifer, and it's
Okay,
like,
well, what I know
oh,
about
and-
the Satanic Bible is they say, "I do what thou wilt." Is that what you're getting at too?
well, no, it's this thing that it's literally called like you're writing an oath to Lucifer, and it like the whole movement is blood over intent. So it's like just breaking that down, it's like, well, whatever you mean by your intent, it doesn't matter because you've made this contract.
I do what thou wilt
to Lucifer, right? Like, so, but then
Dude,
what's the difference
they're
between
psychos.
Lucifer and Satan? Maybe we should...
Everybody knows what's good and bad, and they choose to be bad, and they deserve to burn in hell.
Well, I mean, there's some gray area here, though. Typical Mason that would say that, right? But that, like,
Yeah, there is.
One
there's
of the
always there's always gray.
well, one of the most examples that comes up, I think this is from Joseph Campbell's Power of Myth, but he talks about a story of Marco Polo where Marco Polo goes to this foreign land and he finds out that these people, when their relatives die, they consume their bodies because that's how they view as worshiping the best. Like that's how they honor their family members, and it's how they inherit all their strength and their knowledge and everything. And when these stories make it back to Europeans, they're abhorred. They're like, that's the most evil thing I've ever heard. You eat Nana. When Nana dies, you just start eating her.
It's pretty gnarly, man.
But when he's explaining, to this other group how the Europeans, like, they're like, you do what? You just take Nana's body and just bury it in the dirt and just let worms eat her? Like, why are you not respecting her? So there's like a very real, completely like a true dichotomy between these two things where neither of them is necessarily inherently good or bad, but absolutely perceived to be.
Gotcha.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Good point.
Like, we're not talking murder, but like cannibalism, right? Is like, or eating grandma's dead body. Like, if you heard someone was doing that in the States, you're like, oh, that's a satanic coven, no question about it. They're doing it for black magic.
But what if before you died, you understood that to give your family nutrients, you would be willing to let them eat you? You know what I mean? That's how they're raised, probably.
It's an interesting one. So, actually, what ties into it back to this blood over intent thing, and I guess shout out to Aphrodite Starfire channel where I learned about this. She practiced this blood over intent thing. She didn't think it was Luciferian at all, but part of it that she got into it was this Starfire. For those, I don't want to get my, it's this nasty,
let's make a blood with a star and some candles.
No, it has to do with the menstruation blood and smoking it, like, and something in regards to the whole ritual and just
like the Mother Mary,
like smoking it like a joint.
Mary.
Yeah, I guess there's a video of her doing it with the timestamp. I have not fucking tormented myself, traumatized myself into watching it yet, but I could get those that want to the link and the timestamp, but we won't get into that on this one. But point being, that's taking essentially like your biological cells, like your stem cells, everything like that with your blood, and then putting it into this same ritualistic energy rite that you're, I guess, committing to the Dark Lord or something, whatever you want to believe in.
It is wild to consider that.
If you inherently feel like that's good, I don't understand. Because
wouldn't it be weird if contracts really were some sort of like universal divine pact that somehow like a legal document is going to follow you through into the afterlife?
I feel like that would be somewhat of like a spiritual, like if you're writing stuff in blood, is that a soul contract? Will that follow through to the afterlife?
I like to find where like the exact division is. Like, let's say that you gave a kid one of those like cursive books where they just trace over letters to learn how to write for the very first time anyways, right? But you could give them like a pact with Satan and just tell them, oh, you're just practicing cursive, and then you just like fill their pen up with their blood, and now you've got someone unwittingly signing a contract to Satan. Like, would that work, or do you have to be cognizant of it?
Never trust a red pen from the Vatican. We'll just go with that.
It's a legit question. I mean, I don't think so.
I want to know where the line is, because then it's like, oh, well, no, you have to have intent. Well, then
it's kind of like, yeah, the intent
you
would
don't know
matter.
cursive or you're illiterate.
No,
like, what if you have
blood
intent?
over intent, though. It's in the whole name of this thing. So it's like it doesn't matter what your intent is.
So if that's true, what if you just had a nosebleed and you sneeze, but during the
I get what he's
sneeze,
saying, though.
your intent was
your
to sign a
intention
contract
is
with
not-
Lucifer?
I agree. I don't agree blood over intent, because
Yeah,
could be
well,
tricked.
but that's the whole gig of it. That's the whole
It's
gig.
Right.
Of
So
it.
if you trick someone into signing a contract with their blood, then that
It
has
doesn't
more
matter,
power
in
than
my
your intent.
opinion. Yeah, I agree with them. It's a good point. Yeah.
I got a couple other. Mike and Mike have joined. Do you mind if I bring them up for the panel?
I do mind. Fuck
Oh.
them.
Okay.
One. We just
One.
got one mic.
Just one mic. Uh-oh. I can't choose.
Two mics will enter, only one will leave.
I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back.
Okay, well,
We got room for two. We got room for two.
Okay, we got two mics. There we go. Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Now we're back down to one mic.
Oh, okay. Well, oh, no. He's back. You're back. There we go.
I'm back.
There we go. All right. So, what are your guys' thoughts on
Michael,
what
the
we're
archangels are here with the monotone.
So, yeah, we want to get into archangels. What are the difference between them? How do you know that an angel is an archangel and not a djinn
What
or a
does
demon?
an arc even mean? I don't even know. What does the arc part of that mean? You know, Mr.
That's
Paranoid?
actually a good question, though. Could it be like an arc, like the Ark of
Define
the
arc.
Covenant, the plasma arc? Are they plasma entities? No.
I got something to say about contracts because I've signed quite a bit, and all I got to say is they all meant nothing but toilet paper. So go ahead, sign up with the Vatican.
But
It's
did you
toilet paper.
sign it in blood, Mike? That's the question.
It's still toilet paper with blood on it.
Well, if you're signing with shit,
But
but
go down the toilet like all other contracts nowadays. They don't mean anything anymore. Trust me. I've been through this. Signed them, went to court. Nothing means anything. Nobody goes to trial.
that's the legal system.
I just want to say an arc can also be a segment of a circle.
True. Very true.
But yeah, the ark and the Ark of the Covenant, like the ark has several meanings. BurnEye is hitting upon something there, I think, that is important. Yeah, the ark is
you got to get an angel out
archangel.
of a circle.
You know what?
I don't know what it means.
Maybe.
Good question.
If you took a meter and you swung it as a pendulum, it will give you a second. Okay. So if you divide that circle by 6, like the flower of life, it gives you the length of the Egyptian royal cubit. There's 6 of those for every circle. So if you took a meter and made a circle, there is 6 Egyptian royal cubits that go around in length. The arc
Really?
is a measurement.
It means chief angel. That's what it means.
I heard
the
about
only
this.
individual so designated in
I'm
the
going to shut up
latter-day
now.
saint
I'm just going
canon.
to shut up.
I don't know. Wikipedia says it means chief. It's one word, by the way. 1 word. Chief angel is what it means. So Michael is the chief angel, I guess, according to Wikipedia.
So
Or a
we got-
chief angle. A chief angle.
So
on a
here
circle.
we
Michael
have
is the only individual designated in the Latter-day
Measurement.
Saints canon.
33 degrees.
what are your thoughts on these? Because these are supposedly angels and demons.
Yeah, these are the seals of Solomon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, more contracts. That's all what I
Right.
think about.
Well, what happens if you write one of these in blood? Is that how you make the contract with them, or supposedly put a gold foil on yourself? I don't know. It's kind of sketchy, but they do look like circuits an awful lot. Like,
Yeah,
like
I think
I
so.
mean, you look
too.
at you think about free will. Contracts don't apply to anything.
well,
If you
no,
have
that's
free
just
will.
If you
your
guys,
your will.
Hey, Bernie, go back to 41. Go back to 41. See on the left side there? It looks like a coil. Looks like a coil. And then where the line is crossed and in between in the middle, that short line, yeah, right there. You can almost depict that as a spark gap.
Interesting.
I could be
Could you
just
see a couple of diodes?
Could be diodes or it could be a load of some kind. I don't know. I could be just blowing wind here, but
Not at all. No, these are questions that need to be answered because it's like this looks like electric circuitry, and well, I don't know.
There's a guy who took the crop circles, did the same thing. He's making
the crop circles. I didn't know this, but there was crop circles showing up in a town just next to where I live back in the 1990s, and they were quite large. They were about anywhere from 200 to 400 meters in diameter. They were quite large, and they're just showing up in this guy's cornfield overnight. Boom, they're there. Huge, very elaborate.
That's fascinating.
There's a guy on YouTube who's building a magnetic rotary system based off the crop circles. He says it's
I've seen that.
You saw that? Yeah.
I'm very interested. Mike,
handle.
or Faraday.
Yeah.
You had mentioned these crop circles before, and what were they next to, though? Wasn't it like some facility or something? Or close by or something?
There are a lot of underground water aquifers in the area. It's also pretty close to the Niagara Escarpment. I don't know if that means anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then we got the potential fractal, like a cell phone, right? Fractal antenna on some of these.
Yeah, I do believe some of these things are.
There's the Templar cross, and that's that number 12.
Right, that just 3 of them, and that's essentially like a fractal antenna too.
I was working on a algorithm that would generate various symbols that were very similar to these. So I had to kind of break down how some of them were created. And some of the patterns, if you look into the history of these Solomonic seals, they go back to like the 13th century, I think, in some cases. But a lot of them revolve around a magic square where you just break out like the square of Saturn, and then you just simply plot different points on that square. And then you kind of just connect the dots with all the points you've plotted to spell out certain words or to plot out certain numbers. And once you connect those all together, then they would use certain techniques like symmetry, where they would just reflect the pattern they created. And sometimes symmetry would mean something, magical within the name of that one demon. So that's kind of how some of those
engineers
designs
out
are made.
there. Any engineers out there will agree with the magic squares. If you talk about the John Searle effect,
Yeah,
effect.
Yeah.
Let's get into the magic squares a bit more. Actually.
All right.
27 looked like a radio transmitter, a radio, so to speak.
Yep, very much so.
You saw that one, Mike?
Yep.
27.
Ratios, I guess, is the main point where we're getting at here. The golden ratio and all that. Ratios are important. The golden squares are kind of like a cipher way to do it, and John Searle used golden numbers of the square to do his anti-gravity and free energy project. It's cool, Paranoid.
Yeah,
I didn't make them. I wish I could
tie
take
up with
credit.
pi.
Yeah, I'm more of an engineer, so I'm just trying to let you in on that.
Yeah,
I'm
like
sure.
recently I've been studying the cold heat engine that they made here in Canada back in 1952 with three British engineers. They're working for Avro. Remember the Avro?
Oh, yeah.
Strategic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
kind of
Well, that
silly,
project there, the Avro car, that was a front. That was the least advanced of
It was
all the
silly.
stuff that they were doing. Oh man, you should see what they were doing.
Oh, I know.
The cold heat engine, what it was is they modified a refrigeration unit, and they made a copper tube, and then another copper tube in it, and they had a coil of wire around the outer copper tube. It was hooked up to a power source. So by accident, when they were working with this, they were shooting cold air through that tube, and for some reason or another, circumstances, they dropped by accident a carbon rod down that copper tube cylinder. And when this happened, that copper graphite rod they dropped in there started glowing red hot. So yeah, it's super cool on the outside, but red hot on the inside.
If I may say, Tesla said you can almost get an endless supply from carbon like that.
Yeah.
I know you know that.
Yeah, after studying for the last 2 weeks on what they were doing. So they had about 4 different versions of this generator, and it's all based around basically off-the-shelf refrigeration parts. Nothing special. A lot of stuff was off the shelf that you can get today. And they made this chamber that is similar to what they had before, but it had an arrangement of magnets in a spiral going towards the center, which would be very small, wide on the outside, condensed on the inside. So the way they spaced the magnets on the inside, they were basically working with the Hellback effect, right?
Hallback, yeah. It's a focus. It's a focus. It's a focus of the magnetism.
So it was 2 spirals going opposite directions, okay, and meeting in the middle, getting smaller and smaller to about a point, maybe a half inch in diameter. And this is where they would have that carbon graphite rod sitting. So
similar to the Z pinch or whatever.
Yeah. So to make a long story short, I seen the test results. 8,000 BTUs going in. Okay. And get this, 31,800 BTUs coming out.
Well, if I can go on one level above that, Boyd Bushman, you heard of him, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so imagine that magnetic.
Skunk Fox. Head of Skunk Fox, right? Or Skunk Works.
Yeah.
My bad.
Lockheed Martin Skunk Works.
No,
yes.
No, these guys
but I know. But imagine his magnetic Hallback focus on that.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Right now. Not to down the Americans, but the British in the mid 1940s and 50s, they were way ahead of the Germans, and they're way ahead of the Americans.
You think they're ahead of the Germans?
Oh yes. Yep. Most definitely.
Okay.
The Germans were not it. Yep.
This has to do with Professor Simon, right? It's what he was.
Germans were on another level.
No, they weren't. The British, when it came down to engineering stuff, were way ahead of the Germans. But what the Germans were good. Hold on, let me finish. The Germans were probably the best researchers of ancient text and ancient technologies. So they were able to
the
bring
Vril Society, you know.
Well, that was part of them. That was just one little
It
thing.
It was how they sent the SS around the world to get all of the different ancient texts, right? And they raided all the different libraries, and like it was just they literally had the largest esoteric library collection ever.
Yeah, they're very occult. I agree.
They were excellent researchers. They were good engineers too. I'm not knocking the German.
Victor Schauberger, Chapeller, dude. Chapeller, I think he was the guy responsible.
Well, Schauberger was born in Austria, from what I know.
Yeah, but he was recruited into the scene of that.
Well,
but Chapeller was the guy though that made it happen. I think.
Yeah. So as far as
Carl Chapeller.
But as far as the esoteric stuff, the Germans were the best at it, but the British were the best to re-engineer this stuff. Ian Toz, Ian Thomas, and Bert England. Those three guys were the top engineers in the world back in the mid-50s. They were the top engineers.
It makes sense because they had the whole Royal Society, and the British make.
Well, they're all like scholars from Oxford and Cambridge.
Right. They try to make it. Yeah, it makes sense, but that's cool because I always assumed that.
Now, here's the funny part. This is what I found out today. Apparently, those machines still exist, and they're about. Probably maybe less than 45 minutes drive from me. That's the crazy part.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. They're still alive today. Before Ian Thomas passed away.
In Canada?
In Canada, right in Toronto.
Oh my God, we gotta go, Mike. We gotta go.
Dude.
It's a matter of finding William Doyle Jr.
Shout out, Mike.
What's that? I got to
shout out to Mike.
No, not shout out. No. He was saying shout out to the other Mike who said he was subbed to his channel for a while. You continue. Good.
Too many mics, bro, in one room. What is this?
Too confusing.
I'm right here, man. Mike does.
You could call me Faraday. No. But yeah, that's kind of intriguing. I like to see if William Doyle Jr. is still alive. He'd be in his 80s now, because in 2012, when he did the videos, he was 70. So he'd be about 80, 85 years old now. I don't know if he's still alive, but if he is, he has all the research material. He has 4 working machines in shipping containers. There's one engineer that's supposedly alive that was trained by Ian Toss personally. So there's only one guy on this planet that knows how to rebuild those machines.
Ian Toss, I'm going to have to look him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have to get one of those so we can all make a reverse refrigerator power unit. Because
this is the thing.
It's funny. I heard of this lady that had a UFO encounter, and when she explained it, she said it looked like a refrigerator below the thing. And she was like a Southern lady.
See? There we go. There you go.
Because like you got the serpent kind of back and forth coils in a refrigerator that are different than a circular, because
they're creating the negative
energy. Yeah, normally though in a refrigerator you got like a back and forth serpent type of pattern instead of a circular pattern. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like most people who make over Unity devices or free energy devices, they have to create an open system. This was a closed system. Because it was a closed system, they were able to get very accurate readings on the BTUs going in and the BTUs coming out. Now, that unit that they were making, there was a purpose for it, not just free energy. It was designed to run those UFOs they were designing at Avro. Now, the Avro card that everybody sees on TV, that is the smallest one that they built at Avro. The largest one.
It was a hovercraft.
No, it wasn't. It was anti-gravity because the actual guy that was head of that project was T. Townsend Brown.
Yeah, but it was a gimmick. It was a gimmick like what you would see as a conventional hovercraft, like that would go into.
That was the front to deter people thinking, oh, they're just
the Avro. Yeah, and it makes people think that this is just a hovercraft.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, in the hangar, they got a UFO that's 120 meters in diameter.
Nice. Gotcha.
So they were building the Avro cart and then 2 other models. So they had a total of 3 different UFOs there.
And you would put something forward that looks like it's not going.
Yeah, a front. They were putting a front.
Yeah.
So the public would see it all just playing.
This is silly. Like, what are you doing? You're using a bunch of fans to lift it like 2 inches off the ground.
See, John Frost, he was the head engineer for the Avro Aero. Now, he was also working on the Avro cars. He was also a front. They didn't want nobody to know that T. Townsend Brown was actually the guy in charge, not him.
Gotcha.
John Frost.
Yeah. And when T. Townsend Brown started spinning things is where it gets confidential, is all I'm going to say.
Well, that's where
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Wasn't T. Townsend doing the same stuff that Otis Carr was doing?
It's similar. Otis Carr was doing like a magnetic, like U-ring looking thing through a spinning platform.
Yeah, he was doing.
But T.T. Brown was doing more statics. Yeah, the U-tron. But T.T. Brown was doing more asymmetrical capacitance. Yeah, asymmetrical capacitance.
So that was the difference.
Yeah.
I've got the patent somewhere here. Hold on.
I thought Otis Carr was doing the asymmetrical.
Well, look up the Avro car. Look up the Avro.
No, Otis wasn't doing that.
You don't have that one.
Probably that one's patented. But look up the Avro car. You should be able to find a lot of pictures of that.
Yeah, that was the front, though, right? Wasn't that the front?
Yeah, that was the front. That was the one that they would leak to the public, right?
Yeah. So sorry. Before we continue on that, Thomas has to go pretty quick here as we're getting past his time. But do you want to share any other stuff that you're working on promoting, good sir, and what you got going on?
I mean, we just went over some of those satanic panic pages. If that sounds interesting to you and you want to grab a piece of that one when it's available, the way that I usually release these comics is that you can join it on like a Kickstarter and then you'll get it like a year before anyone else, or at least 6 months before anyone else, because we got to know how many to make. So you can go to satanicpaniccomic.com to sign up for that one. I also got one on the Titanic at titaniccomic.com. And then there's another one.
Why did you do titanicpanic.com? You missed out.
I only get so many. I got kubrickcomic.com that's coming up. I've been working on with David Charles Plate, a think tank, where we're creating a comic that explains the Tetragrammaton, Kabbalah, and Kubrick symbolism, aka Kubrickology, all in one little pamphlet, and the Golden Bough, which is a pretty large undertaking. Fraser's Golden Bough. It tries to summarize all those things in one little comic. And then I got to do another shout out of doesbigfootexist.com, which is the Bigfoot comic that I've been working on with Nate from Reality Czars. So I got a bunch of plates spinning in the air. But yeah, if you're interested in any of those, you can just go to paranoidamerican.com, and I got links to sign up for all those various ones. And honestly, it's been a pleasure to like just share some space with you guys. I learn, immense amounts every time that I do this show with Bernie. I was delighted that we got to show the superwave fusion stuff. I literally myself haven't seen those in like 15 years.
That was awesome.
So weird,
like,
man.
Such a sync, and that's another sync that Thomas does every week with Exertus is the Sync Tank show on Tuesdays, right?
Yep, every Tuesday. I think it shifts around a little bit depending on what country the CIA has Xertus stationed in at any given time. But right now it's Tuesday.
CIA confirmed. I knew it.
at 12
Or Gotti.
Pacific, 3 Eastern.
There was never any doubt in my mind, but we still love our brother.
No, he's honestly,
CI's
I
Ernest.
joke. He's way too smart for the CIA. So I don't know. Like he's in some other alphabet group that I don't even know the name of because I'm not smart enough to hear. It's like an ineffable name of intelligence or something.
It's like fungible NFT NSA.
Right. Right.
That's silly.
NFTs, they went the way of the
Something along
dodo.
those lines. All right. So everybody that's interested in Thomas's amazing works, to help him pre-sell another 5,000 editions like you did with your Illuminati.
I could quit my job. I could quit my normie job and just do this full time if they were all successful as the Illuminati comic was. So yeah.
Hey, Thomas, is there any way you could put your link in the chat or?
Yeah, if
Oh,
you
yeah,
put it in
yeah,
the
of
private
course.
chat, then I can spam it for you as well. ParanoidAmerican.com.
There you go. Yeah. Jarvis, Bernie, Mike, I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for letting me hang out and talk to you guys. Appreciate you all, man.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, brother. Until
care,
we
Thomas.
do it again, good luck and love your work.
33 out.
Illuminati confirmed.
33.
All right, so we got like a half hour left. 33 degrees right there. It's heating up.
It's the humidity.
Oh, humidity. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Getting-
pretty hot
getting
here in Toronto
steamy.
today. Warmest day of the
Yeah,
year.
this is 90 degrees. Like I live next to a lake, so obviously in Georgia, like the sun just evaporates and I can't get. It's hard to get below. Yeah, it's silly. It's funny.
Yeah, I got the.
But
I
me
got
and Sean are doing good.
Yeah, we got
Very
the great.
good.
Hey,
Yes.
I actually had a question for you, Faraday, if you don't mind. Do you know the Curie temperature of barium titanate?
Oh
Curing?
god, curing temperature. It's
yeah.
pretty high. It's pretty
Okay.
high. For some reason it's 2,000 degrees C. It's quite high.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite
Really?
high.
Really?
Yeah,
Because
very
Sean
high.
was asking me. Sean was asking me.
I'll
so I
double
wanted-
check on. I don't know. For some reason, 2,000 comes in my head. It's quite
Okay.
high. Now,
Wow.
the reason is when they heat it up that hot, and when they make, say, like a wafer with barium titanate,
Mhm.
they have to squeeze it to almost like 2 tons of pressure and heat it at the same time for it to cure.
So they're trying to
it's
center it, centering.
Yeah, well, when you put it under pressure, the barium titanate, all those particles of the silica, they're all bonding together, and with the heat and everything, it creates that structure inside. So when you do put stress on it, it shifts and it creates electricity, the charge. So it has to be cured at an extreme temperature and a lot of pressure. A lot of
Gotcha.
pressure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because Sean's been a really he's been looking into hookups on materials because obviously it's hard to get barium titanate, barium ferrite, all those materials like mech glass, especially mech glass. I mean, mech glass is going to cost
That
you
used
some
to be-
fortune.
Yeah, that it used to be very expensive, and I think it still is very expensive. Same as barium.
Yeah. But the reason it's expensive is not because of the material cost, it's because of the secret things you can do with it. You know what I mean? That's what I was telling Sean. Like, they mark it up on purpose because the average person can't get these materials,
Yeah, like the amount that I have right
Just
now,
like they make mercury.
probably
Mm-hmm.
the amount I have right now, if I were to sell it all, is about 10 grand worth.
Yeah,
That-
that's
how
awesome.
much- that's how much I have.
Because,
Yeah.
but you bought it knowing it's worth,
I got it for free.
Oh, wow. That's
I got it
awesome.
for free.
Gerald, I sent you the link if you want to join.
I'm just
I
gonna
have
scoot-
literally.
I'm just gonna
Sorry.
scoot for a quick smoke. I'll be right back.
Hey, Jarvis, Met glass is
Hey,
an
Mike.
amorphous metal.
It's a how would I say this? It's a magnetostrictive metal. that can be used for mechanical purposes with magnetic fields.
It's
The
not
Navy.
glass.
Well,
Transparent?
technically, the glass part is because it's amorphous. Anything amorphous can be called a glass. So
Oh.
it's an amorphous, you know. So
I've seen
more.
the material. It looks transparent.
Yeah, just by calling it glass, though, they're just saying it's amorphous. So the difference between a glass and quartz crystal is the quartz crystal has a certain structure. Glass is amorphous, so there's not a set structure throughout the glass structure. It's the same material. Glass is still quartz, technically, but it's not. It's amorphous. You know what I mean? So met glass is just it's an amorphous. Met glass is kind of on a different level. I would stick with the barium ferrite. I think barium ferrite's cool because it's one of those materials that can be both a magnet and electric at the same time. You know what I mean? Barium ferrite's a barium. Like when you get into trying to make, yeah. So you want materials that can be both permanently statically charged and permanently magnetically charged. Then you get into material science type of.
Why do you want it like that? What's your reasoning? That you
like
want it
Sparky
both
Sweet
statically and permanently?
Yeah, Sparky Sweet, he did something similar to those lines where he utilized both the magnetic field and the electric field. A lot of people know that if you send a balloon up, you're going to get a huge voltage. But by using electrics, you can make it into a confined space. You don't have to send a balloon up to get the potential.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, so you're producing the environment itself that would be mimicked by sending that balloon up in a very confined space.
Y'all see the patent I got up right now?
So you're saying the electric is a way of achieving the voltage potential that you want in a material.
Basically, yeah.
Without going in high in altitude and all that.
Yeah, it's like I say a lot of times, like imagine having a magnet and people are like, who cares what a magnet is? What do you do with it? And literally the Industrial Revolution wouldn't have happened without magnets. And magnets are just the tip of the iceberg. Everything is electrical. And electrics have more impact on everything around us than magnets do. Magnets have certain impacts on.
Yes,
Let me ask you another thing. You got the ability to make the high voltage with a coil and just, oscillating it or pulsing it or whatever you want to do with the buck boost function and all that. Why the need for the electric if you can do it with a coil in regards to voltage?
It's a permanent static charge, just like a magnet. So we use magnets to generate electricity with rotors over coils. And it takes a creative thought to see how something that's permanently statically charged can function the same as a magnet would in the future. It's the missing side of the coin. Magnetism does its thing, but electrics will act like magnets, but with electric fields instead of magnetic fields.
Right.
So it takes creativity to see where it can go, And it would take me all day to say where I think it can go. But it's like somebody saying that a magnet is worthless. You would be an idiot to say a magnet's worthless.
So the current fundamental understanding why electrics are useful is that you don't have to apply the charge to them.
It's constantly a static charge, just like if you were to pull your
right. You don't have to apply any charge like you do with a coil. You just
it's always charged, just like a magnet.
So that's the basic understanding of why it's beneficial at this point.
Yeah, because it is the second side of the coin. Electromagnetism is both, but nobody focuses on the electric side. Magnets have been so beneficial to society But electrics, like
Magnets just have the
Sean,
magnetic field. They don't have the electric, the voltage.
yeah, I always say I kid around to Sean. I say, anything you can do, I can do better. Like anything a magnet can do, an electric can do beyond its ability, because electrics act on all matter. Magnets act on specific types of arrangements of valence atoms to give them magnetism.
Who wants
Like,
their mind blown? Sorry to interrupt, but what we're looking at, oh, not just the alchemy. Oh, look at the height of the tower and the corresponding potentials that
That's
are
awesome.
mapped and gridded for electrical potential from the atmosphere and harvesting.
May I
Just
say
saying.
this, Bernie? Remember what I told you what the philosopher's Mercury was?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
We'll never.
Well, what I will
Okay.
say, and we won't repeat that now, but what I will say with the philosopher's magnet is an electret. They use
Jeremiah
Ah,
says you're wrong about
appreciate
something.
that.
George.
And
I'm right. I know I'm right, dude. You can't.
Does
say
this
I'm
not look very familiar
about
there,
what?
Jeremiah, who's watching? The current patent I have up to what I was telling him and then what
It's just
he
gonna look bad.
came up with. And it's like, oh, look at that. Someone else came up with it, but I channeled it and he figured it out.
He says you're wrong about something.
All right. What am I wrong about, Mike?
No, not me. Jeremiah is saying in the chat something you said is, I don't know, probably about electrics or the magnetism or something.
Who
You know,
knows?
an electric charge can attract all metals. You know, copper, silver, gold.
Well, I mean, doesn't the electric charge need the amps to do that, though?
No, it's an electric. It's a
electric dipole spacecraft.
Yeah, it'll attract it to a minute level, but if you want more attraction, you need to involve the amps with that voltage, don't you?
That's where it comes to alignment of fields. Magnets and electrics can be combined, you know. But on a basic level, imagine your clothes coming out of the dryer and having really dry sand that has gold flowers. You could take your laundry, if it's statically charged, and attract the gold flowers out of the sand, as long as it's very dry. That's the philosopher's magnet. And Bernie will know what I'm saying here when it comes to
fully do.
When it comes to the philosopher's
the magnet is
Mercury,
needed to warp both.
I agree. A potential can attract anything, but at what amplitude,
Lordy B. I just can't.
Very minimal at this point, from what I understand.
I don't know.
The electrics don't have the power yet, the amps going.
All right. United States Patent Measure or what? What do we have here?
That's what I understand, that they're working on increasing the amplitude of the electrics.
Trust me, man. It's
solid state Tesla coil suit. Solid state Tesla coil suit.
What?
Well,
once they do though.
Old man builds. I think you need to build this one. This one is you. Solid state Tesla coil suit.
That is old man Bill's for real.
I found some Avrocar pics if you want to see them.
Oh yes, please. Yeah. By all means, bring them up.
They're gonna be the front, but this is what's silly. This is what people see and they think it's not good, but it's a background, like Mike Faraday's saying. Faraday research. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Gotta. There we go.
That's the Avrocar.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a air propeller, no?
Well, that's what they claim. That's what they built this model of. But it's that I found the corresponding patents that go along after it, and that like Mike Faraday was saying, this was just the cover, right? So they're like, oh, we built this vertical takeoff lift thing that didn't really balance, and don't look into it. And then there's 10 more patents that go along after.
Exactly.
So this was the front. Now, the big one they had was 120 meters in diameter. Apparently, it was huge. It took up the whole hangar.
It just blows.
That was a good line.
Yeah, that's just the Avocar. I think that's just a distraction.
Yep. Yeah, it was very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was their cover for, hey, anytime you see a disc-shaped craft, it was just us testing the vertical takeoff thing that doesn't really work.
The funny thing is, it really works very well because most people are going to be like, what's so special?
Yeah, exactly.
It does work.
Oh,
They're good at what they do, man.
We're gonna get
And also the Avro Arrow, the airplane itself, that was also a front as well. That was going to be put into production, but Eisenhower basically told Diefenbaker to shut the program down. But all the real engineering was done by a company in Toronto, where Ian Taz and Bert England and all these great engineers, they work for a company called Design X. And that's where they were working on the cold heat engine at the same time. That was one of their projects. One other project.
That's how they were powering the technology. That makes
that's
so
right.
much sense.
That was exactly what the purpose of that motor was going to do. Right, power the
bingo bango.
From my perspective, they're using all these exotic explanations, such as the Bob Lazar explanation with the gravity engine. It's all being used to say you can't do it.
Exactly.
You can't do anti-gravity because it's got to be complicated. And let's not forget, sound is very capable at levitating things. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And they just do all these things to get us to forget about using sound in our experiments, which
or
is even
another element, Mike. Think of this one, because a lot of these UFO
Ralph Rings,
they're saying these things are huge.
Ralph Rings, the snake salesman.
But just listen to this idea. Listen to this idea.
No, Ralph Rings, the snake salesman.
Listen to this idea, okay?
He worked with OdySee Card. You're going to call him a snake salesman now.
Yes. I am.
All right, enough of that. Let's listen to what Faraday has to say first.
Okay.
Sorry. Let's listen.
Now, okay, obvious what they had in Area 51, the Bob Lazar thing. Okay, that engineering is way beyond what we're capable of doing. Okay, way beyond. If it's true. Okay. Now, we could have anti-gravity devices right now by kind of cheating. Okay, very, very simple. Making giant UFOs, but filled with helium. There goes your gravity. It's gone right there.
Well, you're talking about like aerogel structures with
with helium,
the Tic Tac. Yeah, but that's kind of cheating. But you're right. You can do it that way.
Think about it.
You could.
Think about it this way.
Exactly how the MH370 orbs are.
There's also the stuff like Terra and Earth is describing. The polar, the charge potential, the charge on the hull of the craft, whether it be an air balloon or whatever, a solid object. You give it a high voltage charge to the hull, and there goes your gravity.
Well, think about it this way.
Anybody with OdySee car, though, like he would literally make it into an advertisement where you go into there and give you the experience of seeing indigo and transport you to a different place. But it was a gimmick. It was a gimmick, and it's proven it was a gimmick.
There's definitely more than one way to do AG.
It was a gimmick.
I don't know. I've been taking a look at OdySee car stuff lately, and
I know. I've looked into it too, but it's a gimmick. Trust me, he's a snake salesman. It's not. I don't think
so. I think there's more.
Hey, you're welcome to think what you want. You know what I mean? If you get results, you get results. That's all.
If I were to make a UFO right now, okay, based on our current technology that we have, all right. We know we don't have the technology of what the Bob Lazar.
What would you use, Mike?
Honestly, I would make a giant, helium type balloon that looks like a UFO, but to make it move, use the electrogravitics. That way it doesn't make any sound.
You know what I would
think
do?
Jeremiah
I'd build a
Jeremiah
big
knows
speaker,
what I would do.
put it facing down the craft.
With the
Tune it
A
correctly.
field, the A field is more important than you guys get right now. The A
But
field
think
is
about-
essential.
But what
It's a
what
free
I'm getting
percent.
at,
So
what I'm
that you
getting
can
at, with-
utilize. The A field is going to go more towards lift and propulsion when it comes
kind
to
of what I'm
electric.
getting at.
Forget what the A field is. Is that the magnetic or the electric?
It's a vector potential. Sorry, Mike. I'm so sorry.
What I'm getting at is with helium, you don't need any energy. So that solves one problem on lift. Now you can focus all your power that you generate in that UFO with electrogravitics, which would move your helium balloon
Bingo.
high speed with no sound.
Balloon at high speed would just, it's not a solid
I wish I
structure.
got
Well,
paid for
no,
any
you're-
picture.
No, you're going to shape it like a UFO, so it'll have the same dimensions as a UFO, but filled with helium. Now, a lot of these UFO sightings, they're saying these things are huge. Well, who's to say that they don't have either hydrogen inside or helium to give it lift? If you
It's
can
like
take
a sophisticated blimp.
right, so if you say you're able to cancel out the weight of the craft by 80%.
This would
that
have to be a
cancel
craft.
G-forces?
This would have to be an unmanned craft here. You could drone something like that, but you can't breathe in helium or hydrogen atmosphere.
No,
You know what I
it'd
mean?
be engineered to,
It would be
have
a
certain
drone.
areas.
I
But
still think you need
it's-
the high
it's
potential charge
certainly
to cancel
possible.
the G-force.
It's certainly
something
possible, but it would have to be a drone. You can't literally have a hydrogen or a helium environment with a person on board.
No, you would engineer it so parts of the craft wouldn't have that. You would have, like little pockets inside that chamber where the helium is that is strictly for the occupants, right? And electrogravitics would go on the outside skin of the craft. And if you could eliminate the weight of the craft by even 80%, that's a huge energy savings on the craft. So all you have to worry about is propelling it without
A
making
small
any
amount of
sound.
propulsion goes a long way in that scenario.
Exactly, sure. Especially if it weighs like 10 tons.
Especially if you have the electric field canceling G-force. If
Yeah,
you're able to do that.
Yeah.
It's not far-fetched for a high voltage potential to cancel G-force. It is probably a specific voltage too. I don't think it's just any voltage. Probably a range of voltage that is required to negate any G-forces that are, hitting the craft.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end here, and my apologies, everyone, for how quickly I've been going through the photos, as I will be doing full breakdown episodes that are organized with all of these
That looks like a
patents.
speaker.
It does, but it's a UFO, of course. The disc-shaped craft, as they all are.
Looks like a
This one is
complicated
pretty
sound device.
Yes, good call. Yes, exactly, because the acoustic property is a huge property within it. Great observation.
Yep. You make the right frequency, it's going to cancel it out. You're going to get cancellation of mass.
Yep. And that's
Good job,
exactly
Bernie.
what that was, Jeremiah. So you can help me get some funding, and I can give you all of these files plus the rest of it. All right. Closing words, my friends. Mr. Mike Jarvis.
Friday, we're go for the show at 9:00 Eastern, right at Faraday Research. So that's about it.
I will be there.
Hit the thumbs up, guys.
Right, always great advice, Mr. Mike. And Jarvis, you there? You muted? You're not sure? Maybe. Yeah, I
Jarvis
guess
is lighting another
probably.
cigarette.
All right. Well, there we go. I guess, everybody check out Faraday Research. Everyone check out Mike Does. Everyone check out Paranoid American, our great guest that was here. Oh, and for those that weren't here at the start, we'll play one more time the quick video of that Nathan or Thomas had shared that he did working with Disney about super wave fusion, cold fusion, and it's the exact processes, but more complex than what we've actually figured out ourselves. Fascinating stuff. This research is so advanced, there is still no mathematical formula for it. Oh, wait, that's what I have been writing out. Ha, 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 ha. Win me a Nobel Prize.
Did you hear Trump's getting a Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah. They gave Obama one before he bombed 8 countries, so,
A volt is applied to 2 electrons.
Right.
Immersed in an electrolytic solution of heavy water and lithium salts. This establishes a flow of current from a strip of palladium, acting as the cathode, to several platinum coils, acting as the anode. Temperature sensors measure the temperature of the electrolyte solution within the cell, as well as the cooling water that surrounds it in the larger jacket container.
What is this, Bernie?
Within the
I was saying I desperately need a travel fund, but
No. What is this thing we're looking at?
So this is an Israeli startup or something that had hired Thomas, Paranoid American, while he was working. Hired Disney to do this mock-up animation for them, and they did a few of these, and then it's like the company just disappeared. And this is from 2008. And
is this some kind of fusion device or something?
Yeah, it's a cold fusion device, right?
Oh.
And so it's showing heavy water here. The oxygen, and then the D's are deuterium, which is just hydrogen with extra neutrons in it. And so we'll play this little video here, and then I'll quickly explain how what we've discovered is all of this, but way easier, less complex, and we understand the mathematics.
Solution. Many of the D2O heavy water molecules are dissociated into OD negative and D positive ions. When the voltage is applied to the electrodes, the OD negative ions are attracted to the positively charged platinum anodes, where they lose an electron and combine with other OD ions to reform back into D2O, while the remaining orphaned oxygen atoms combine to form O2, which escapes as a gas up to the surface of the solution. Meanwhile, the D positive ions are attracted to the negatively charged palladium cathode, where they quickly find an electron on the surface of the cathode to neutralize their charge. This cathode is made of palladium atoms, arranged in a face-centered cubic lattice. Some deuterium atoms work their way into the lattice by popping through the interatomic sites within the lattice. Other deuterium atoms bump into each other along the surface of the palladium cathode and form a D2 molecule that's too big to enter the lattice. These D2 molecules cluster to form bubbles that rise up in the electrolyte solution. Simultaneously, new D2O molecules are dissociated in the electrolyte into more OD negative and D positive ions. So the process continues as long as the voltage is applied. However, when the super wave principle is used to vary the current with a pattern of rising and falling nested oscillations, the loading of deuterium atoms within the palladium lattice is enhanced, and so
If you get a moment,
deuterium
Bernie,
atoms in and out of the cathode. As the concentration of deuterium in the lattice across the cathode surface increases, the deuterium starts to work its way deeper into the lattice, popping into neighboring interatomic sites. As the deuterium occupies more of these interior sites, the lattice dimensions increases a little. This lattice expansion causes mechanical
stresses. Get a moment, can you check the private chat, Bernie?
Resistance to deuterium
That's how the world burgers.
thus requiring higher currents to force more deuterium atoms into the lattice until it reaches saturation. When the concentration of deuterium within the lattice is high, they begin to move more collectively, like a school of fish or flock of birds.
Like they're in
Not all
resonance.
at once, but increasingly synchronized over time. At this point, pairs of deuterium atoms begin to disappear, fusing together to form an atom of helium-4 isotope. A significant amount of heat is released in this fusion process. The energy released by each helium atom that appears, 24 million electron volts, is dissipated.
Okay, running out of time. So, we've been able to reproduce that without needing the deuterium and still to make helium out of hydrogen, and also just through acoustic transmutate aluminum into iron. But we'll get into
Would you
that.
mind showing the wood burgers?
I'm sorry, I don't have enough time, but I posted it in the link, but we only have 30 seconds left, so I have to end it. But anyone that wants to
all right.
No
join
worries.
after
No worries.
can do, and I posted the link to join in the live chat. Love you all. We'll see you on the next one.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just BurnEye! BurnEye just like last week, huh?
Weekend at Bernie's.